is Katie Stewart, and today I'm talking about conscious communication. So, this has been coming up like mad, like crazy, because as we're having more clearing come up just in a collective, the anger, the like old template as it's changing, as these things change, anger's coming. I mean, it's just boiling up and it's being directed at people. And in general, if you're working on yourself, if you're going through this ascension, if you're growing into who you want to be, I think communication is one of the most key aspects of who you are, and the ability to be able to communicate and say what you're really thinking, or what you're really feeling or experiencing, in order to have that actually passed on to somebody else without hurting anybody along the way or without having to act a fool, is a high level skill, I would say, in becoming more conscious. So first of all, there's different variations of communication. Obviously, there's, if you're in a situation where there's an argument or somebody's upset with you, or if you're upset with somebody, and so that will be kind of a separate conversation. But in general, I was a preschool director for years and was always able to, and I never really knew that this was a skill at the time. It was just a kind of natural capacity. It just kind of was the way I ran a school. Was if I set an expectation ahead of time, then that will just be known across the board for everybody else, so we can all run through every single day, know the expectation, and know the rules. And then when something does come up, it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, this is what the expectation is. This is what happened. Let's talk about that. And so some of that is like businessy, but I do believe there's something to be said for doing that in your personal life as well, and knowing your expectations. So looking into your life, but knowing what you deserve, knowing what you expect, in terms of your interactions with other people, knowing your intention, and knowing, again, that it's always grounded and rooted in love. So that is always the common goal, is to be in a state of love, which doesn't always mean giving up. No, it never means giving up more of yourself or receiving more of another person. It means getting to a common understanding, right? So in our house, we just the other day did a declaration. So my daughter and I wrote down, these are the expectations that we have for ourselves. And it really turned into a very personal thing for me, because it really helped me to walk through, this is what I need as a person. This is what I need to be mentally, physically, spiritually sound in my existence. And so to go through and figure those things out for yourself. And sometimes you'll see, as things come up, you might want to add something or adjust something. For me, I need to know that I'm safe to process and share my emotions at home, no matter what that looks like, because sometimes it does. When something comes through, if you're releasing, I keep coming back to anger because that's what keeps coming up, but if you're releasing anger, there's a lot of ways to do it, but sometimes it's going to be through like having to write something out or verbalize something, or sometimes my daughter and I will do like a primal yell to get just the energy of that's been stored down. You'll see this a lot in kids too. After they get home from school or work, and notice this in yourself, if you've been at work all day, or a spouse, partner, friend has been at work all day following rules, and you get home and you're the grumpy and the throwing things or whatever, that's just that stored up energy. So one of the things we do is like, get out your wiggles, get out your giggles. If you need to yell, let's like shake it off, get it all out of you. And that's actually a productive way, where we've kind of typically been taught to bury it or cope with it somehow, or like you're not allowed, and so you pretend you don't even have it, and then it's the passive aggressive, like, I'm not mad, you're mad. Okay, this is ridiculous. Not that anybody's ever experienced that. I'm sure there's no passive aggression, because you're all such good little girls and boys. That is funny, isn't it? How it's like, what makes you good about not having an emotion? Who determined that? Who determined that was good? Or be quiet, and that makes you good or bad. It's wildly confusing when you really think about it. It's determining that somebody else's processing is less valuable than your silence, I think. Which is, anyways, I just think that's interesting. Another communication technique. Are you reacting or are you responding? So if something happens and it triggers you, noticing that trigger, what is the thing that triggered you? Because that's what we really need to look in, because it's always in us, right? We're upset. The other person's not upset. What was the trigger and how did it make you feel? So where did you feel it in your body? When I'm in like an energy clearing or healing session, I'll meld with the other person, and I usually feel anger is like this hot, like burning sensation, either like in the top of the solar plexus or in the heart, where it's just like stored there and like fiery, just swirling up in all this fire. So you can imagine releasing that is going to feel a lot like that. So where are you feeling the energy? If it's something you're trying to communicate but you're not sure how, and it's something that somebody else triggered in you. Another thing, so identifying what it is that you want to say. So if you are having a conversation with somebody, or a lot of times it's like these conversations that we're not having that actually create more of a challenge than the ones that we do. And in a lot of ways, I think typically like the template for male, female, masculine, feminine, the template will be males tend to be maybe more forward in their energy, and that is the masculine energy, like the forward, the pushing out energy. And then females tend to be more like reserved in it, and so that's a lot of like that comes up later is gossiping, because trying to release it and get it out instead of identifying, okay, this is what this is what happened, this is what I intend to say, and this is how I'm feeling. Also understanding that you don't have to, like, you are allowed to say, I don't know what to say right now. Please give me a chance to process this and come back. I'm just thinking about when anytime you notice somebody is passive aggressive or not saying something or holding something in, you're allowed to say, hey, is everything okay? And open that door of conversation. If you don't know how to, you know the intended outcome, but you don't know how to get there, you don't know if you're allowed to get there, I always say this, but write it down, right? This is how I'm feeling. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I want to be able to achieve this, but I feel like I'm not allowed or good enough, or you did something that affected me, and that was really hard for me. But also knowing it's not even the other person. What we all want is to rise up together and get to a higher level outcome in terms of, hey, next time when this happens, just so that XYZ doesn't happen again, or I'm not, I don't have to take all 10 kids to the grocery store, or so I don't have to do this because you ended up having to stay at work. If you could communicate that to me in advance, or whatever, if this is my solution so that this problem is solved. Understanding that everything is okay. I mean, everything is always okay. It's us that has to learn to process and identify and evaluate everything that we're experiencing. And this is part of self-care too, is knowing that you're taken care well enough that there's not even space for passive aggression. That if you're, a lot of people I know who are like stuck working at home, and that's not really what their heart is desiring, there's a lot of resentment if they're feeling like a spouse isn't helping with the children or vice versa. And there's just a lot of that like push and pull and needs not being met, and not knowing how to communicate that because you both know the other person's doing this other role and you're both doing roles together and we're in this together. But knowing your expectation, knowing what you need to be in a position where you're living your best life, that you're appreciated, that you're getting what you need for survival, or thriving would be better. But that is a lot of the thing that causes the resistance, I guess, is not knowing what it is that you actually desire. And you can't get past the judgment of the situation because you've never been taught. A lot of people are just like, this person is labeled as all of these horrible, awful things, and really the other person's suffering in themselves, but we can't identify that we really just want what's best for the person. If that wasn't vague enough. I think of specific people and situations, and then I'm like, oh, how do I say that without saying that? So let me give an example. So let's say you're with a friend, you work together in business, maybe you're like sharing an online platform or something, and it's your friend, so you don't want to like hurt their feelings and say anything at all if they're, not updating their part of the job or not doing their part of the work or not showing up on time or just really not fulfilling the expectations of a professional role. And so you bury it in, you don't want to hurt their feelings, you keep it kind of quiet. Meanwhile, this other person's feeling your resentment, feeling what you're projecting onto them. Instead of dealing with it or coming up with a better solution or maybe getting separate websites, it all just stays stuck because we don't know what to do. And then it comes up as anger, and then it's, well, you did this and you did this. And just these energy, like arrows going back and forth at each other. Instead of stepping back, getting into the position of love and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. It doesn't have to be from a place of emotion or judgment at all. I'm thinking about getting a different website. Boom. Done. And it's hard because you're taught that you have to keep people happy and you have to keep people, in a certain role. But if you're not happy or wanting the best for that person and they're not wanting the best for you, how is anybody better off? Right? You don't stay in a job because, well, a lot of people do, but you shouldn't stay in a job complaining about your boss constantly if you're not happy there. Like, nobody's forcing you to stay in this role, so look for something else. You're deserving of something else. Everybody deserves to be in a place where you're happy, and you don't have to be an energy vampire and going into a place and constantly dragging everybody down. And if you are, you need to look within and handle that. I think that's it. If there's any questions on this, it's probably all over the place, and I could do another video on more specifics on just the conflict resolution models in general. But knowing if you're a reactor or a responder and leaning into the responding. How do I really respond to this instead of reacting and having to be in a state of judgment? Okay? Have a blessed day.